Is
Yeah,
that what you're looking at?
That's perfect. Well, hi, everyone.
Excellent.
Thank you for coming. My name's Valerie Sessions, and I'm a proud board member of Charleston Women in Tech. Saw some other board members on the line. Thank you for coming, and thank you for your service. And of course, as always, thank you to Nina Magnuson, our director for Charleston Women in Tech, for your continued support and all that you do. In the way of announcements, I put in the chat about Charleston Girls in Tech. They also have a meeting tonight at 5:30. The Zoom link is there. You can also follow them on Instagram, and I put their Instagram handle as well. Jamie Tazi will be talking to them and any of us that also want to attend about her 20 years at Microsoft. So she'll be inspiring the young ladies, of course, but I think she'd also have important things to tell us. So you're quite welcome to come to that. Invite someone that you know as well, especially if they're in that 10 to 18-year-old range. We're doing a joint book club with the Girls in Tech and Women in Tech. So the details about that will be coming out soon. We did have a link to where you could tell your preferences about what time you would like to do that. That has closed, but once the announcement goes out, you're still welcome to join the book club, even if you didn't fill out that questionnaire. Be on the lookout for a March Charleston Women in Tech meetup with Jen Bulware, another board member from that is working at Amazon in Seattle. And so that'll be released soon. And then our final, I can't believe it's final, but our final mentor of the month will be next month, March the 3rd, with Valerie Warnock, and she will let us know how we can upgrade our social media presence. So I am nervous about that. I still don't have a picture on LinkedIn. That's my goal before that actually happens, so she doesn't call me out. But come to that, get some great tips. But without further ado, we do have Phoebe Bickford here today. You can actually read it on the screen because she showed it, but she's a development engineer at Robert Bosch. She has a BS and MS in mechanical engineering from Clemson, and she's very active in the Society of Women Engineers here in Charleston. She was the big muscle behind the first Women in Industry Day in 2019, which went off so flawlessly. We're so thankful to have that. And then also the virtual one last year. So thank you, Phoebe, for all you do in our community, and thank you for joining us today. So I'll hand it over to you.
Awesome, thanks. Yeah, and I was going to start with thanking you. Actually, when you reached out with the idea for this mentor virtual setup, I was like super happy, because for the last several years with the Society of Women Engineers, we had been trying to figure out how to start a mentorship program, and then COVID hit, and it was like, what are we going to do now? And you reached out, and I was like, great, we will forward these invitations to our SWE membership. So maybe some of you on the line are joining from that. And so I think it was the perfect way to provide the opportunity for mentorship while everybody's living virtually. So yeah, I did put this up on the screen so we could all start here in case you hadn't gotten the chance to see the invite, but just we all have the same starting page. My name is Phoebe Bickford, just like Valerie said. I'm serving as the president of Low Country SWE. I've been on the leadership team since about 2017, and I work at Bosch. So I'll go into some more details later. Currently, I am at home since the coronavirus pandemic started. I've been working from home most days a week, but I go in about once or twice, depending on what I'm working on. So let's start with setting some expectations for the day. I'm not a work-life balance expert in any way. The point of today is for me to share with you what I know about work-life balance from my own experience, and to explain it to you as if you were my mentee in a more official sense. And if what I say today resonates with you and you'd like to discuss further, for sure reach out to me. I'll put up some contact information at the end, and we can look into maybe doing a more regular mentor-mentee conversation. But this is a really great way to get to meet me, learn about me, and see what I think, especially with regards to work-life balance. So let's address the elephant in the room. I am relatively young. I'm going to turn 28 soon. I don't have children. I am married. But, what do I know about work-life balance? I think that's kind of the point of it, is that I haven't achieved work-life balance, and I don't think that anybody really can. I don't spend a lot of time stressing about my time commitments to work or things in my personal life, though. So I feel like what works for me could work for you, and I'd like to share with you how I approach that. So I would like to give you, and this is, a lot of this info is in the bio that was shared, but just some more context about the aspects of my life that I am constantly balancing that are important. And so you can keep these in mind as we go through the rest of this lunch together. So on the personal side, the relationships in my life that are important to me that I'm balancing is my relationship with my friends and family, of course, and my husband. So just looking at the timeline, we've been together for 11 years this year, which is a long time. We got married back in 2015, and we got our pandemic puppy last year, Mick, who I thought was going to be in the room, but he is downstairs at this point, probably chewing something up, but he's a sweet little puppy. And so those are, of course, a very important part of my life and something that I know that I need to find balance with. This is the reason that I don't work all the time, is so that I can spend time with my husband and friends. Also on the personal side, something that's important to me alone is my health. And so I'll talk about that as well. But when I was a child, I was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes, which is something you can't just walk away from. So I'm the sole controller of the amount of insulin that my body gets each day. I wear an insulin pump stuck in my pocket here. And I control that every day and watch my blood sugar. And so I know personally how important your health is, and that it's not something that can go on the back burner until you've reached mid-level career. It's something that you really need to pay attention to. So that's always going on for me. And also, I do choose to run and enjoy running half marathons. I ran my first one back in 2011 and have been continuing to run about one a year. It's a distance that I really enjoy because I don't think any of you here really care how fast I run them, and it's not fast at all. But I can be like, oh, I've run 8 half marathons. You can be like, wow, that's impressive. But they're terribly, terribly slow. So I really enjoy that distance. But I signed up. I'll do my 9th run at the end of the month up in Greenville. So that is what I'm currently working towards. And on the professional side, this is, of course, the other big half of the balance. You get the personal and the work and the life. This is the work side. So up here, I show kind of both aspects. The profession side, being an engineer, being a development engineer, working towards becoming an executive. And that's my career path that I'm working towards, with following my passion for empowering women in STEM. I think that any of us that have gone through or have been in a STEM field know how important it is. You're sitting in the room and you want more women to be there. That's why I love lunches like this, and why I love SWE is getting to see and meet these women, but also doing my part to help put more women in the room. So I joined SWE when I was a freshman at Clemson, served as a leader there as president, and then I got my bachelor's and master's in mechanical engineering, like Valerie said. After I graduated, I moved down here and joined Bosch as a development engineer. In 2019, I spent 6 months in Germany in Abstadt, which is in the Stuttgart area, doing a foreign assignment with Bosch, and then came back here for that first Women in Industry Day event, which was a lot of fun. And I'm looking forward to the next in-person one. The one that's, I think, tomorrow is when the save the date goes out for this year's virtual event. But yeah, hopefully next year is in person again. And then in a few months, it was just recently announced, but I'll be replacing my boss when he moves back to Germany this year. So being promoted to group leader of my current development group. So this is the aspects of my life that I'm constantly trying to balance. And that's kind of what I would like to share with you now is, what do I do to find balance between these different aspects of my life? So for me, the key to finding balance is getting to know myself and know what works. And I do this in two main ways that I think these are kind of tools that when I started thinking about it, I've been doing these for a while, and I'd like to explain how you could implement them in your own life if you don't already. And maybe it'll just give you something to think about, even if you don't want to give this a try. But my opinion is that, like I had said before, I don't feel like I'm stressed often trying to find this balance. And that's because I spend a lot of time trying to understand what works for me and how I feel about where I'm at, and looking ahead and making these plans for the future. So I took these photos while I was preparing to give this this talk. The first one on the left of the screen is my journal, which is actually sitting right here behind me. And on the right is a picture of my OneNote and my regular calendar reminder for my 3MGs. So the point that I'm trying to make here first is that in order to strike a balance with, or to fall in love with this balance that you have to know if you are regularly becoming someone that you want to be. If day after day you are doing actions and making decisions that is not bringing you closer to somebody that you want to be, then you're going to feel stress. That's kind of my belief. So the point of journaling is to figure out who you want to be and to have these conversations and to get to know yourself. And then the point of the 3 main goals, which I'll talk about, is to assess yourself. Is, am I anywhere near where I want to be? Am I doing things to bring me closer to that? So this right here is how I personally choose to maintain balance between my personal and professional lives. And so I'm just going to explain to you how I do it. That's the bulk of today. So with journaling, I start each day. I was debating if I should just open up and read yesterday's because it's really short. We're just in this current phase of my life. It's maybe 3 minutes. But I start each day with gratitude. This is relatively new. I've been doing this part for just about over a year. I had gone through the Rachel Hollis Next 90 Days with my Women at Bosch group and just liked it. I kept it because I realized that I really enjoy forcing myself to write down 3 things that I'm thankful for. And they are, I'll just go ahead and tell you what it was the day before. So I started this morning with yesterday. I had a FaceTime with my college roommates. I wrote that down, made my night. It was great. My husband was on call. He works at MUSC, and he did not call in, which means he did not wake me up in the middle of the night when he got called in. And I ordered a phone case, which charges my phone. Because my phone died over a long run recently, and that arrived as scheduled. So 3 little small things that I am grateful for, and they were very small, like I said, just an example. So this works for me. The whole point of it is that it gets you thinking throughout the day of things to look for, to be grateful for, and they've done a lot of studies that show that you become a more positive person if you spend some time in gratitude. So gratitude is how I start, and then I dive into reflection. So usually this isn't very difficult. Usually I've got one big thing on my mind and I just kind of start with that. I'm feeling stressed about this thing I've got coming up. I'm excited about this thing coming up. I don't have a lot of time to write today. And then I ask myself kind of, why do I feel that? Why do I think that? And then I just say, because I'm feeling a lot of stress because, and then I say why I think that's the case. And just usually, at least for myself and what I've read for other people, is similar to just talking through it. You realize once you see yourself write it or once you hear yourself say it, maybe sometimes it becomes obvious to you. And so the whole, you can ask yourself too, am I being too hard on myself with this? Am I maybe being too easy on myself with this? But the whole point is to, just spend some time kind of reflecting and trying to figure out, how you feel. I sound repetitive, but again, the point of this is to figure out how you currently feel about where you are. And then for myself, because I love challenges, I usually will just put a challenge there at the end for the day. So like yesterday, I knew that I needed to go run with my running group, and I knew that I didn't want to because it was cold. So I wrote down that, because I was working from home, today I will change into my running clothes during lunch, because then that would be, one thing I could remove out of my way to keep myself from running. So that was, for example, and sometimes it's if I'm thinking through how I'm stressed about something, and it's a story maybe I'm making up in my head, I'll just challenge myself, I'm going to call him. I'm going to call my coworker and talk through it and see if he really does think this, or if it's just something I'm making up, for example. And usually, for me, if I write it down and it's just one thing, just one thing I've got to do that day, usually I'll do it, because I don't like to break promises with myself. If you struggle with that, then maybe that approach isn't going to work for you. But again, this is all just explaining what's been working for me. So the reason I really like this, and I've been doing this on and off, I've been journaling since college, on and off in a not so formal way, but it's fun sometimes if I'm in a funk or I'm struggling to go back and read like a time before when I thought I was going through something really hard, because what I've been learning is that life just continues to get more and more difficult. So 3 years ago, what I thought was really difficult is easy peasy for Phoebe today. So going back and reading how melodramatic Phoebe was being 3 years ago, for example, will sometimes kind of like snap me out of it and be like, okay, yeah, I realize that I can do hard things. Another difficult tip is to find a time that works. I used to always be journaling at night and would always forget because I'd be tired and I would just go to sleep. But I always find time to like check Instagram while I'm drinking my coffee in the morning. So for example, I just will put my phone down or put my journal here where I'm usually sitting and drinking coffee. And it's easy to do. So sometimes it helps to just replace a habit. And yeah, the last tip is just to go ahead and give it a try. I mean, if it's something that you already do and you're like, okay, yeah, I know this already. But if you've never tried journaling before and you're maybe feeling stress about your current work-life balance situation, yeah, just go ahead and give it a try. Just write it down. It could be Post-it notes. I've got this like old 1-a-day calendar sometimes that I'll just kind of jot something down on if it's in my mind. So go ahead and give it a try. It can't hurt. So this is at a glance journaling and what works for me. And so let's talk about 3 main goals, the 3 MGs. I honestly don't even know where this came from. I started my journey with 3 MGs back in 2016. And I just liked the abbreviation because it was a calendar blocker. My calendar is public to my supervisor. So I didn't want to be 3 main goals. I just put 3 MGs. I figured he would never ask, but I could have stolen it from somebody. Honestly, I don't remember. So what it is for me is it's once a month, a 1-hour calendar blocker, because finding an hour a month is actually doable if you block it out in advance. People don't put anything over that. And I sit down and I have this OneNote document, and in it, I've listed 3 main goals. The first one is a professional goal. This makes it makes sense for me to start here because it's just where I am in my life. This is where I find the most challenges at work. So my biggest professional goal is written down. And then usually under it, I'll have kind of a checklist of something I can be doing in this year or this season or this month to achieve that. And it's it follows the SMART. It's, attainable, it's measurable. There's a due date on it usually. So this is it, but it's not the entire point of this 1 hour that I spend with myself. So yeah, usually it's, I don't need to get into the specifics of my job, but usually it is more or less job related, but more abstract. It's not like completing a specific project always. Sometimes it's for example, last year, a big one that I had was completing a certification program. It wasn't necessarily job related, but it would help me do my job better and it would help me in my career path. So that's just an example. Then, equally as important, I've got a personal goal that is related to my physical health, because again, your physical health is so important. I think that we forget it and we will sacrifice sleep or nutrition to work on other things sometimes. And yeah, it's extremely important. So for me, having something that once a month I remind myself of my personal goals related to my health just keeps me on track. Because there have been times where I let it slide and I won't run for 2 months, or I'll get back in the habit of drinking Coke Zero every day. And yeah, this is something that I think you need to keep at their equal playing field with your professional goals. So currently for me, for example, I've been training for this half marathon. Last year, going through the pandemic, no races, I just had to run once a week. And I knew that if I went at least on 1 run a week, then it would keep me running more regularly. But it could be something completely separate, getting 8 hours of sleep every night. Brushing my teeth before I go to bed every night, something that you struggle with that's related to your physical health that can help bring some balance there. And then another personal goal that is related to your emotional fulfillment. So maybe it is a hobby that you're working on that you don't find the time to practice for painting or something, you set aside, you're like, yeah, I'm going to make it a goal to paint 15 minutes a day or to read 15 minutes a day, because it's something that I know brings me joy, but I struggle to find time for it. So for me, currently, it's to make a memory with my husband once a month, which doesn't seem like it should be difficult, but sometimes you lose track if you get busy. So at the beginning of each month, I'm planning ahead. I'm like, are we going to go to the beach? Are we going to go visit a family member? Or what are we going to do this month that will make it memorable? And I just keep that track. I keep it written in the same document again, same playing field, because that's who I want to be. I want to be somebody that is successful professionally and has a strong relationship with my husband and has good physical health, so I can live to be old enough to enjoy retirement with him. Tips for maintaining a goals mentality is to think all three: short-term, long-term, and medium-term. So this changes, of course, like maybe once a year you sit back when you do your target setting with your supervisor and you're like, okay, yeah, I do need to reevaluate my long-term goals a little bit, but then on a monthly basis, you focus on the short-term goals. What is something I could do this month to bring me closer to my medium-term goals, which brings me closer to my long-term goals? Not a goal-setting expert or anything, but this is at least keeping it front of mind helps me assess, again, if I am regularly becoming this person that I want to become. And so hand in hand with that is another tip to only be holding yourself accountable on this personal goal setting meeting for things that you want to do. So it's not like a copy paste of the targets your supervisor sets for you, especially if that's not who you want to be. If you want to be somebody, if you want to be a more well-rounded engineer, you want to learn how to do other parts of the industry because you want to have transferable skills, that makes sense if it's reducing the cost of something by 15 cents because that's what your boss says. It doesn't make sense to be tracking that. Same for the physical. If your partner is participating in Whole30 and they're like asking if you'll join them, like don't be holding yourself accountable to that because it will bring you stress when that monthly reminder pops up and you're like, oh, I don't want to go look in that because I know I haven't been following Whole30. So the whole point is, again, to use this to hold yourself accountable between who you are today and who you want to be, not who somebody else wants you to be. So here's kind of the main summary page if you want to take a screenshot or jot it down. But this is, I would say, the bulk of what I think that I do that brings me work-life balance or helps me check in with myself on this journey for work-life balance. I'll leave this up for just a second, but there's not really anything else to say to this. The whole point is to just regularly check in with yourself. How am I feeling? And then sometimes, and so I just got some kind of like additional extra thoughts. Sometimes you might realize you're in a season of your life where you are feeling more stressed. So I'm going to move on. If that is the case, I remember learning this back in high school psychology class, and it stuck with me forever. So I view things through this lens a lot. But if you're feeling stressed sometimes, then it could be that you're not, like you're sacrificing these lower level needs. And so you have, Maslow had this hierarchy of needs. I'm sure that you've seen this before. It's been around forever. But the idea was that humans have needs that fall into this hierarchy, and you have to achieve your lower level needs if you want to achieve anything above that. So that bottom level, breathing, food, water, sleep, like you have to be sleeping if you want to work on your relationships, with your friends and your family and your partner. Like you have to be working from the bottom up. So sometimes maybe you'll realize that for the last week I've been journaling that I'm feeling this stress. And then you can kind of think to yourself, maybe it's because I'm not sleeping enough. Maybe it's because I'm not exercising enough or eating well enough. And vice versa. Maybe you're finding stress because at work, because you are fearing for job security because of the economic situation. That's understandable. It's maybe out of your control, but it might make sense. And so you're like struggling to work on this higher level self-actualization, I believe it's called, because work is really stressful currently due to the economic situation. It makes sense. So just a lens maybe to look through your reflection with. Some thoughts to this, though. Sometimes you will have a short-term goal that is very challenging, and it might require sacrifice. And my opinion has always been that it's okay, because sometimes you can sacrifice sleep for a short amount of time, because achieving this short-term goal is going to help you in the long run. And I think a lot about like grad school and basically grad school. Maybe you're going through a night school program to get your MBA or to get a master's, or maybe you're doing a bachelor's on the side or something. And so this is really, really challenging because you're working and you're working in school. But that when you graduate, you get a promotion or you have a new job opportunity or something. And so it's worth it because there's like a finish line in sight. So what I'm basically trying to say is I'm not preaching that you have to always get 8 hours of sleep if you ever want to have work-life balance, but having this conversation with yourself, knowing that what you're doing is bringing you closer to who you want to be, is going to maybe bring you more peace about the current sacrifices that you're making. And you can also maybe make the assessment like these sacrifices are too much, something else has to go. And that brings me to the second analogy that I wanted to bring up that is not at all for me, but something that has always stuck with me that people have said. So you've probably seen it before. When I Googled it recently, I found the same exact quote attributed to John Maxwell and James Patterson. So I don't even know who said it. Maybe someone on the call does. But this has always stuck with me. So imagine that life is a game in which you're juggling all of these 5 balls. You can have work, friends, family, spirit, health. I copied this word for word, so I would maybe call it different things. But the point is that if you're juggling all of these balls, some of them are glass and some are rubber. And so, yes, your health is a glass ball in the long run. So if you drop it, it will be damaged. So like this is where I'm saying in the long run, you cannot be giving up sleep. Your friends and your family and your relationships, they are glass balls. If you drop them and they damage, they're gone. But not really. I think it's all about what dropping it looks like. Maybe you make a sacrifice there, but you cannot lose them. The whole point is you drop them and they're shattered, they're gone. Work bounces back because it's made out of rubber. So maybe you make a sacrifice at work. It's fine. You can pick it up later because it's not a glass ball that you don't have forever. So I think that this is something that makes a lot of sense. You have to know of your responsibilities that you've got on your plate, which one of them can be sacrificed in the short term and which ones of them you need to hold on to and protect from dropping. But how you would define dropping is maybe that's up for interpretation. And yourself, your relationships with your friends and your health, for example. But it is an important lens to kind of look through it. So just wanted to share that analogy in case you had not seen it before. So that's basically it at the end. That's all I've got to say. So I wanted to say thanks and open it up for questions. And I can also go back maybe to that other page real quick to leave it there. But you can easily find me on LinkedIn if you want to. If you want to connect later, talk more about something. But yeah, I really appreciate getting to share this with you. Here, I'm going to go back to this page, though, to leave it open for questions.
Thank you so much, Phoebe. This was so interesting. I have never heard the glass and rubber balls before. I know you said a lot of people might know, but that was so helpful to me personally. So thank you. I wanted to ask you, so you may have some decisions on what you feel like your work-life balance should look like. What do you do when people, like your boss, don't feel the same way? Do you have any strategies for that?
I think so. I don't know if this is a strategy or not. I think that gender might play into this one a lot. So, for example, I think it might be the case where women are less likely to play the game. We read this book in SWE Book Club recently that has been sticking with me a lot. It was like Nice Girls Don't Get the Corner Office. But I think a lot of it is about kind of how you carry yourself in these conversations and think what would a man say? So my boss recently, I think, had said something along the lines of, oh, it's fine. You've got the whole weekend to finish it. And I just kind of laughed back haha, yeah, good joke. I'm not working on that over the weekend. And so just to take a firm stance and to like to set my own boundaries for it, and I think I've been lucky where I've never been in a situation where I've clearly had to make this choice. I've been between something personal and something professional. And I think in the instance that would come up, I would really have to sit and ask myself what I would regret more, letting down my husband, for example, or family member or friend, or letting down my boss. And I think that having that conversation with myself, the answer should probably become pretty clear.
I think that's great. I think too, the earlier in your career that you set those boundaries, or with your coworkers, the better. That was good. Thank you.
Yeah.
Anybody else have any questions? You can either type them in the chat or you can just ask. It's no worries. Phoebe, you must be so thorough that you just covered all the points.
Yeah, I would be curious to know too if anybody had like an opposing opinion also. Just, but yeah, we could also follow that with that offline. But I would be curious to know, because this is a conversation that I don't get to join in often. It's not something I discuss a lot at work, for example.
So Lisa says, do you think the male gender still makes the assumption today that single women would work over the weekend?
Yeah, for sure too. I think like 1,000,000%. I don't know why that's the case. I mean, there's obviously reasons why that's the case, but I know that that's a very challenging conversation and issue. Like, I do have a more flexible schedule because I don't have kids to take to daycare, and my coworkers do, and I don't have like soccer games to go to. But for me, just kind of like avoiding it's worked the best. Granted, we don't have a lot of weekend work. I think this might be the benefit of working for a German company or European company. They have a much better, a lot of the work-life balance I've learned, actually, I should have brought this up, was from the time spent in Germany. The Europeans just do a much better job. They shut their laptop at the end of the day, leave it there, go home. It'll be there in the morning when I need to come back. Yeah, so it doesn't come up much. But yeah, I would say that it's an obvious expectation that being a single woman or, a childless woman, that you have more flexibility. I've got things, I find things to do, so it's my time.
Yeah.
It's not other kids to take care of. Yeah.
About when journaling is, she says, do you set a specific time or just free time or free journal? Like, do you do it for a certain amount?
Usually, my arm game is weak. I can usually only ever write like a page at a time, and that's it. But I would imagine that it's no more than 10 minutes. Yeah, there's no way it's more than 10 minutes if I had kept it regular. And sometimes there have been times where if you're like doing, we did this in the next 90 days challenge, but if you're going through and doing kind of a more free flowing, this was a goals by 3 months, 1 year, 3 years, lifetime, that's more time, but I was doing that on a weekend when I was doing some additional self-exploration, but day to day, 10 minutes. Good question.
Do you have, so I don't know if you can read this one. So she says, how do you conceptualize your goals? Are there practices you use to do that? And is that the next 90 days challenge outcome?
Yeah, great question. So originally, back in 2016, when I first went through this, my 3 goals I had 3 professional goals that were just things I wanted to do. It was like get a promotion and make more money, get my name on a patent, and travel to Germany because I knew that people did it. And I was like, these are things that I just would like to do. And there was no formal like approach to it. And then on the personal side, I wanted to start a photography business, which I did start, and I do like 2 or 3 paid gigs a year for photography just for funsies, because it's like kind of an emotional fulfillment, and to run a half marathon that year. So like there was no professional conceptualization to this. For the next 90 days, or actually, sorry, I shouldn't be giving the credit there. It was the book club was Girl Stop Apologizing, one of her books. And in that, she does have a structured approach that I do recommend. And it was called like the 10-1-1. And it's really all about yourself writing down a vision of who you want to be in 10 years, or 10-10-1, who you want to be in 10 years. So you just sit and think. So you close your eyes and you imagine, like, who do I want to be in 10 years? And what are the things I'm doing? Where am I eating? Where am I traveling? What kind of clothes do I wear? What do I do on the weekends? What do I eat? So I might have said that. And then it was like you go through and you read that and you kind of like underline 10 specific things. And those are your like 10 goals. And so then you can write those down and you can pick from those what you want to do in the next 1 year, I think was the approach. And I liked that. And for me, and I know that I bring him up all the time, but my husband's great. But I liked that because afterwards I read that out loud to my husband and he was like, yeah, I was like, this is who I visualize myself being in 10 years. And he was like, yeah, I'm totally on board, go for it. So that was like, for me, a really helpful exercise.
Cool. Thank you. So the other one was a question about, do you have advice on how to get other people to realize the importance of work-life balance? So especially since we're working remotely and people think you can just work whenever you want to.
That's a really good question. I mean, I think just, again, the fact that I work with people from Europe makes this a little bit easier. But I think just expressing how important your extracurricular life is to you is not saying that your work life is unimportant. So for me, for example, it's a really common part of our group's culture to talk about I use running a lot because it is like one of my big things that I do right now. But I bring up like the running club that we do. It's a Bosch running club, and I bring up the half marathon that I'm training for, and just discussing how important these things are to me. It's part of and I think that most of it's pretty common. I think a lot of people. A lot of guys, if they talk about how proud they are of their kids for doing sports things, or how excited they are about the car they're restoring. I'm trying to think of examples, but sharing the joy that the other half of your balance brings you is not saying that work is not unimportant. It's just saying that the other half is also very important to me. If that's helpful.
Yeah, that's great advice. Right. Any other of your questions? If not, we might wrap it up and go start journaling too. I'm gonna have to go find a much nicer journal, I feel like.
Yeah, that's what. Yeah, no, just use a book you've got sitting around.
Exactly. All right. Well, thank you guys so much. If anybody has any further questions, Phoebe, do you mind staying on the line just a few more minutes?
Yeah, of course.
All right. Thanks, everyone. That was great. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Lisa, no, I've never heard of brain dumping.
Me neither. And so I know you said the next 90-day challenge, is that, and I kind of fuzzed out for a second because I was trying to read the chat, but the 10-1-1 was in that book?
No, it was in Girl Stop Apologizing.
Girl Stop, okay.
And I feel weird recommending Rachel Hollis because I'm not really sure how I feel about her personally, but what she had to say there, I couldn't disagree with.
I've read something by her before, so I kind of get your thing. And then the other book club one was Nice Girls Don't Get the Corner Office.
Yep.
I like that. That's cool.
Which emphasizes saying no. And we did that one with SWI a while ago, and it was nice because it's written in tips. It's like bullet points.
Cool.
Yeah.
Sweet. Well, I'm going to come up with some professional goals, but they'll be a lot, or personal professional goals. They'll be a lot shorter. They'll be a lot less, what's the word, out there than like a marathon, maybe like run 1 mile.
My dad does a mile. He's been doing a mile a day for like several years. And so he's kind of my inspiration.
That's awesome. I love that it's just like, do the one day or the 1 mile, because that'll keep you doing it, as opposed to if I don't do it perfectly every single day, then I'm never going to do it.
Yeah, I told myself if I was ever out running and I started to hate it, to just like stop. Like don't get to the point where I look at my running shoes and I am sad. It's much easier to run down here in Charleston where it's flat though. In Clemson it was rough.
Yeah. Cool. Well, I think that's everything. Thanks again so much for this.
Hey, I love this structure. So do you think you'll continue this through the end of the year?
Well, we'll definitely do. So we have one more March the 3rd, which will be upgrading your social media presence. And then the thought after that, when we were planning this back in August, was that we would have a big, like, let's all come together. Finally, COVID is over and we can do this, celebration. So I don't know if we'll do a virtual celebration or just kind of wait, and maybe August, September timeframe, we could do a big, happy time. I think it's worked out well to have this type of a mentorship, like where it's more virtual, more people can come. So I think we'll just kind of go back to, we'll have a mentorship committee and just kind of see what people think worked the best.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Do some reflection, and then because we will continue to forward this out from SWE. We are struggling with engagement currently. I mean, it's people don't want to join stuff after they've been on work and Zoom all day, but yeah, we'll continue to forward this out because it's better than anything we could try to do ourselves.
Yeah, no, it's really difficult. And then it's so difficult to put the things on that the more we can band together and do it together. I mean, I know on our side, Women in Tech, anything you guys come up with, I'm sure we'd pass around to.
Yeah.
So, and anything we can band together.
This is the majority of our, you probably still already on our email. I assume you get our monthly emails.
Yeah. Do you send them to everybody that was in Women in Industry Day?
I don't actually know how it's created, but I'll just check if you're on our MailChimp. Should be easy enough.